Hi, welcome today. We're looking at today's video. We'll look at business transactions and journalizing, part one, or as I also call it, let's get rid of the Keystone cops in us. And the reason why I say that is the Keystone cops, as I remember, were a group of silly cops who went around chase bandits, and they would eventually catch them, but they do all kinds of silly things. Well, that's kind of where we're at too, with regards to journal entries. And what we want to do is get that silliness out of us and start to have it make sense. And that's going to take a little bit of practice. So hopefully this video will help us get rid of those Keystone cops in us. So the first thing we want to look at with regards to journalizing is, what is a transaction? The transaction is a completed event that must be recorded in dollars. So what do I mean by a completed event? So let's just say that you just signed on at my business to work for me, and you get paid $100 a day. That is not a completed event. However, once you start working for me, then that would be a completed event. Something must have transpired where I owe you something for services that you have performed. And then of course I can measure those services in dollars. So there are a lot of different types of transactions that could affect a business. What we want to do is label everyone into what we got and how we got it. And that relates back to the fundamental accounting equation, assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity, where the what we got equals how we got it. That equation will always be true, where the accounts go up or the accounts go down in value. Now there are several possible combinations that could affect the accounts going up or down. We could have a plus on one side and a plus on the other. Of course, the pluses would have to equal. We could have a minus on one side and a minus on the other, but again, the minuses would have to equal. We could have a plus and a minus on one side and no changes on the other, but again, the equality must be maintained, and we'd have no changes on the asset side and a plus and minus on the liability and equity side. And again, that equals must be true. So let's not worry about it. Let's not worry about the terms debit and credit until we head farther on. Let's just worry about, well, what happened, is the plus or a minus, and what accounts do those pluses and minuses go into. So the first thing we want to do is ask ourselves, what happened? Can you explain what happened? Let's say I paid rent. Okay? Which accounts would be involved if I paid rent? Would it be rent expense and cash? That would make sense. So a lot of what we're going to do is think logically, because it has to be something that will make sense. And then the last thing, did it go up or down? If I paid rent, have I paid more rent than I did prior to this payment? Yes, so then rent expense would go up. If I paid it in the form of cash, do I have more cash or less cash? I have less cash, so cash would go down. Okay, let's look at some of the transactions. I got 4 examples here with regards to these 4 combinations here. So the first one is purchase supplies on account. So what happened? We went to the store, we bought some supplies. What accounts would be involved? Well, it says supplies, so always look at what, if you got clues, and on account. So it would be supplies and accounts payable. Did they go up or down? Do I have more supplies or less if I bought some? Well, I have more. And do I owe more money than I did before? Of course I owe more money, because I owe the vendor who I paid, or who I got the supplies from. So this would be an example of a plus and a plus. What would we get? We got supplies. How did we get it? We charged it. And that's going to be the easiest way to think of these transactions, is to apply it in what did we get, and then apply it as to how we got it. Don't worry about debits and credits. Just worry about that. Paid a bill. What did I get? I got the release of having to pay a bill. And how did I get it? I paid cash. So do I have more bills or less bills? Well, I'd have less bills. So my accounts payable would go down. Do I have more cash or less cash? Well, if I paid a bill, I have less cash. So I have a minus there, so I have a minus in cash. So that would be an example of a minus in cash, minus in accounts payable. What about if I have one that's plus and minus on both sides? So let's look at, we purchased a computer and we paid cash for it. So what did I get? I got a computer. Do I have more computers than before? Well, of course. So the computer went up in value, so plus to the computer. How did I pay for the computer? I paid cash for it. So do I have more cash or less? Well, I have less cash. So my asset here went down, so minus to cash. And that equals to no changes because the computer went up $1,000, the cash went down $1,000. So no change. In the last one, we changed an accounts payable into a notes payable. Now, why would that happen? Well, maybe I don't have the money to pay a bill, or the vendor wants a little more certainty that I will be paying a bill. So he says, I want an IOU that's signed. So the accounts payable ceases to exist and changes into a notes payable. So what did I get? I got the fact that I owe more money I got less money that I owe on account. So the accounts payable went down. How did I get it? I got it by signing a note saying that I owe you more money. So the notes payable went up. So we got a plus and a minus on this side and no changes on that. So again, what did I get? My business got a reduction in the amount of money that I owe vendors on account. How did I get it? By signing a note that I will pay on a certain date in the future. Now notice that I'm going back to this equation right here. What did we get? How did we get it? It's going to take a lot of practice, and it's going to take a lot of time for this to make sense. But in due course, it will make sense. So again, we're looking at business transactions. Let's get rid of the Keystone cops in us. A transaction is a completed event that must be recorded in dollars. When we ask what happened, ask what did we get when something happened and how did we get it. That'll help tell us did we get more of something or less of something. Then we put the pluses and the minuses wherever they happen to be. And that will help us to formulate what we will do in the future with regards to debits and credits. If we know it's a plus or a minus, that's going to make it easier when we set those debits and credits up. So I look forward to seeing you on the next video. Take care.